Good morning, cellists. Here we are on the third lesson on the Courante in week 3. And before we move to the technical work on the Courante this morning, I'm going to look at a couple of bow exercises and technical preparations for the left hand. So first, the bow exercise. This is based on our 4-string wave. The wave exercise, which we normally try, is to make sure that we are looking at the macro move of the bow. When you're on the C string, it should cut in a nice right angle on the string, and from where you're sitting, it will look like you're pointing a very long way away in order to be correct. And as we pull the bow to the point across the strings, again, in order to maintain a right angle here, which is for good sound production, we will find that our hand really feels fully extended pretty much away from us at the point there and back again. And that this huge arc that we're drawing here, which is sort of complementary arc to the arc of our strings, is what we're going to be now looking at on just 3 strings as this exercise. It's just a portion of that wave. That's all it is. So down bow for 2 strings, up bow for 2 strings, and keep on repeat. You can see some of the sort of sense of rotation in my arm as I do that. And this particular bow pattern is going to be directly relevant in bars 26 to 27 of the Courante, so that as we come down, I have used that very technique to cross over 3 strings in otherwise what might be a slightly awkward moment to get across the 3 strings as comfortably and easily as possible. So if you do that little bowing exercise first, you won't find any problem with that moment. The other bow exercise I think would be useful for this portion of the Courante is the one where we're looking at power and strength as we move to the point. We commonly try this on the C string where we have gravity and we're looking at relaxed arm weight to produce good tone quality. And remember, we're using the forearm muscle to create strength at the point. This is the same principle. We don't quite have the same gravitational assistance, but we're going to do this on the D string, moving to crescendo to the point and then one strong sweep just at the top. I'll show you. And again. Now we'll make sure we have flat bow here and we're really powering into a good strong resolution note, a shorter note. Then to add a variant to this, we'll move to the A string for that final note like this. And again. And this will prepare us quite usefully for the beginning of section 2 of the Courante, where we have a semiquaver action moving to a loud D, exactly using this bow stroke, where we want to get stronger and arrive very powerfully on this up bow in the following bar. So there's 2 nice simple bow exercises to get you prepared for the Courante, which we'll look at in a short while. Now, moving to left-hand technicalities. Last week we did have a look at a diminished 7th beginning on E, and this is useful to have a return to, and we're just going to consider how it can migrate to a different chord with one very small change. So I'll remind you, we began on an E. Diminished 7ths are made of minor thirds. So from the E, we went straight to 4th position for a G, 4 on a B flat, stretch back to C sharp, close the hand back to E again, stretch back to G, close the hand onto B flat, stretch the hand to C sharp, close the hand to E, and as you know, it's got the typical little crab crawl look to it as we move back a semitone. It's got like a little creature crossing the string. Now it's quite easy to find those minor thirds because our hand without any stretch in it creates a minor third pattern, nice and easy. Now by moving just one of those notes down by a semitone, just one of them, we turn it into a dominant 7th. don't be worried about the theory. I'll probably do another bonus lesson on that in due course. So let's just take a fragment of that and to see what happens. So if we begin again on the E, G, B flat, C sharp, E. Now if I just change the C sharp not to be a C sharp but a C natural, listen now. It's become a C7 chord, and that is the dominant seventh to F. And you can hear that it wants to move there. If I just play that little fragment again, we'll hear the resolution. And there it resolves. Now, one of the reasons I'm drawing your attention to this is because Bach loves diminished sevenths for this very reason. Of the 4 notes that create a diminished seventh, you can flatten any single one of them by a semitone, and you turn it into a dominant seventh, which means that it's like a crossroads in harmony, and you can move to any one of 4 keys. And in fact, if you look at the major or minor options, you can move into any one of 8 keys from the same diminished seventh. And a little example of that actually is in the Courante, looking at bars 23. At bar 23, we have a diminished seventh here. This diminished seventh, which is D sharp, F sharp, A natural, and C natural. Now if I move that C down a semitone to a B, it's turned into a B7 chord, and bear with me, if that B is a dominant, we cross the string by a fifth, and you come to the resolution. Note the resolution is an E. That's exactly what Bach does. He moves into E minor, so we have the implication of, and that without even really making a great big scene about the dominant that it moves into, you can just imply that modulation moment just from the diminished seventh. It will resolve to E minor. Now, that might be a bit too much in one go, but I can break this down in future. Trust me on it a minute, diminished sevenths are useful things to learn, even if you don't necessarily understand the concept of how it moves as a stepping stone from one key to another. Now let's have a little look at the next fragment of Feuillard's 29th study, and we got to bar 16, which is a C major fragment of scale. Now watch out here, that's turned into a C7 because I've added a B flat, and guess what? He's going to actually change one of those notes. So we've gone from the dominant seventh to a diminished seventh. Okay, so these techniques are employed extensively without you necessarily realising it. So we have moved up the cello here. Now the next line, it shows you Roman numeral, go to the B flat on the A string. Now it says C sharp, sounds the same as the D flat I had here, but we changed to a 1. And I'm immediately moving to another chord. Sounds like an A major fragment there, which it is. Then stretch. We've got a bit of diminished seventh in here. G minor here, another diminished seventh, stretch, A major again, then a stretch for a diminished again. There's the fragment of the diminished seventh I started out with, where we began on the knee. This whole fragment of the study is based entirely around that diminished seventh. So just going from the 13, this is actually, if you look at the lines, 1, 2, 3, fourth line, second bar in. This point downwards, we're absolutely following the diminished seventh line. You can see in my hand shape how we are moving across that very same structure. So if you practice your diminished seventh, this will become easy and quite satisfying. Don't worry too much if you don't necessarily understand how it's resolving in between each of those steps. It's all there in the manuscript in terms of the solutions. Trust me that it's useful. So get those diminished sevenths under your hand, little crab crawls across the string. Right, let's have a look now at the beginning of the second section of the Courante. So we're beginning in the dominant D major. And there's that bow stroke, da 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 da, strong. Now this little section, this 4-bar phrase, is beautifully written in the terms of the two voices. So we have the top voice, agree, agree, and then actually this maybe is the lower voice now. Sorry. Token over to upper voice. With agreement again. Let's just try that little fragment again. Now, as I've moved on into the next sentence of music here, we've got the diminished seventh again. Just drawing your attention to that, that's why you're going to be practicing them. Just before we look at that, let's just consider for a moment bar 21, where we're moving across 3 strings. Use a nice flat bow hair for that and it will help you transition nice and neatly across. It's harder than it looks because you've only got a semiquaver on each string as you're moving across. But as I said, the flat bow hair will help you move across there. Now let's see, harmonically we're moving to E minor, the relative minor of our key of G. So through this fraction at the end of 22, there's our diminished seventh, which has arrived at E minor. And I spelled out as to why that was quite close. It's because it's implying a B7 chord before arrival at E minor. We've arrived at the bottom. Now, bar 25, this is the bowing that we saw in the first section where it's strong on the down, light on the up. So it's about rotation, strength in the down, light on the up. Guess what? Yes, it's another diminished seventh. Bach loves them. They are very beautiful constructs. So here he is. And there's that little bow movement that I gave you at the beginning. And this end cadence, still in E minor, he's still continually emphasising this key. Don't forget that for cadences that have an unexpected fall, imagine you're going where you would expect to go, like this. And you would play that really properly arriving. So properly arrive, we just drop the octave. And that's it. The second part of this, the Courante section, we will look at in the next lesson. So let's just see what we've got so far, beginning at the beginning of section 2. don't forget things like rotation when you're moving over to lower strings. If you rotate your arm really consciously, you will help get a really good tone because you're getting strength over into the fingertips. Don't just try and stretch over for it like this, because it won't be such a good contact with the string, and you may well find distortion of your intonation. So go for rotation, and then you should be in just the right place across the arc to get a very satisfactory note there. Well, I hope you enjoy that, and don't worry too much about your diminished sevenths, but do have a little look at them in that old scale book. Take care.